If you have one of these, you're very lucky. It's a Nintendo Wii U and they're selling out. We'll tell you all about that and more right here, right now on Digits. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Simon Constable. With a story on the Wii U, which I have in my hand, we go to Ian Sherr with the Wall Street Journal out in San Francisco. Ian, very, very sexy, shiny game system, and apparently Indeed. You can't get them, right?
Well, they're very hard to find, that's for sure. You know, what they've done is basically, Nintendo says they've sold about 400,000 of them in the first week since they went on sale on November 18th. And they're really happy with the sales. They think the momentum is good. And more importantly, they're selling just as they hit the shelves. So there seems to be enough demand for them for now.
Enough demand, but I mean, if you can't get them, do people get so frustrated that they can't get one of these game consoles and then they go get something else instead, right? You've got to have
possible.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, part of it you have to consider for a moment is that if you remember the original Wii, which came out in 6 years ago, that thing was really hard to find for a very long time, and to the point where actually, like, television shows were lampooning how hard it was to find them. And so it went on to sell nearly 100 million units, which is the most that any of the current video game consoles have done. Now, so it's, you know, while there's a possibility of leaving money on the table, reality is that if people really like it, they're going to get it eventually.
Now, you've actually, you're one of the lucky people. You managed to get one of these,
yes.
And you've been playing with it and stuff. How did you find it? I mean, is this a fun thing to play? What was it like?
Well, it's definitely interesting. You know, the original Wii had, the big thing that was different about it was these motion controls. So you had like a wand in your hand, and you could do stuff like mimic playing tennis and baseball and whatnot, and fishing. And so this version, what there is because there's that touch screen, which I imagine you probably have on the set there, you can do a lot of things like, for example, I can shoot ninja stars at the screen by just swiping on the touch screen. I can also see something different on my screen as on the gamepad from what's on the television, which they call asynchronous gameplay. And so it allows me to play different types of games. Like if we're chasing each other, you know, the player who's looking at the television can't see what I'm seeing. So there's a lot of interesting kind of new ways to handle it. As with the original Wii, of course, game players are still learning how to use it exactly and how to best use it. So a lot of games, for example, if you're Batman, for example, some of your gadgets use the gamepad. There's some games that the stuff that you're carrying in your knapsack or whatever is on the gamepad. You just click on it from the gamepad to use it. So there's a lot of different ways that people are handling it. There's no real kind of, you know, people are still figuring it all out, right? But it's definitely interesting.
So this is a very good sign, actually, because we know the video game business has been having a rough time of it lately. This is a good sign, right? Because presumably then you sell the Wii U, they've sold 400,000 units, presumably they're going to sell a lot more of these as well, and then people have to buy the games to go with them, don't they?
Right. Well, and one would hope that's how it plays out. One of the things that there's a lot of concern about, of course, is that retail sales of video games have been very bad. Digital, you know, over the internet is a different story. But, you know, the real question is exactly what you bring up. Is the demand enough to really bring in the people, buy video games, get those profits up? And right now it's still unsure. I mean, this is a really good data point. MPD, which is the people who do monthly tracking of this, they're going to have data coming out soon that will give us more insight. But it's really kind of one of those things of, you know, we're talking about Nintendo's the first of the major video game makers, you know, PlayStation and Nintendo, PlayStation and the Xbox, the other two, to come out with a new piece of hardware. And what we always know is that the new pieces of hardware allow for new games that are more interesting, and they bring a lot of people into the stores. And that's what we're really looking for, is whether or not that'll happen this time.
Now, there are two sorts of gamers, aren't there, broadly speaking? There's sort of the casual gamers who'll pick up something and play, and then there are hardcore gamers. Right. Based on what you know, is this going to appeal more to the hardcore gamer because the graphics are better and all that sort of stuff, or is this going to suck in people who, you know, maybe, you know, a bit more casual about it?
Well, Nintendo's never really tried to. They've definitely played much better to the casual and the younger crowd. You know, Mario is a much more kind of kid-friendly character than some of the other ones out there. But one thing about Nintendo this time around is that they're really trying to push hard on the higher end of the market, the hardcore gamers as you call them. And they have games like Assassin's Creed by Ubisoft, where you go around and you assassinate people in history and whatnot. And you know, these types of rather bloody games that Nintendo has shied away from in the past. They haven't entirely, but they didn't have them before. Call of Duty Black Ops by Activision is another one. So Black Ops 2 rather. But these games are Nintendo's effort really to grab that larger kind of the hardcore gamers who spend a lot more money on video games, frankly. The casual gamers, as you point out, they pick them up, they try them for a little while, and then they let them go. And that's what happened with the Wii a lot, is that you know, a number of gamers I talked to, they had a Wii, but they also had an Xbox. And Nintendo this time around, they're really trying to grab both. And if they can succeed in being the only video game system people have, that'll be really successful. But you know, the important thing to bring up is that you know, Sony and Microsoft's answer to this hasn't come out yet, and they're expected to come out next year. And odds are that they're going to have slightly better specs. They might have different stuff that also competes against the Wii U in a more direct way. And you know, we'll see how it goes. But for now, Nintendo has the run of the market at the moment for the new stuff.
Well, and we will see how that goes quickly. Nintendo launching a Wii Mini, but just in Canada.
Correct.
Wow.
And I mean, what it is it's basically a miniaturized version. It doesn't have all the capabilities of the original Wii, but it's a lot cheaper. And they haven't said about any other availability at all. I asked, and they said, you know, they stuck to their statement about how it's just going to be, you know, it's in Canada now, and there's no other comment about international availability. But one would presume it's going to spread out, and that's not uncommon for Nintendo. They like to have the lower end system being the older one, and then the new one as well to kind of capture the higher end of the market.
Okay. Well, we wish them luck and have fun playing with your Wii U before you return that. Thank you very much, Ian Sherr of the Wall Street Journal out in San Francisco.